Hello and welcome to this grammar lesson. Today we're going to be looking at the word have. Okay, so this word has many different uses, as you've probably seen throughout your English learning journey. And today we're going to pick it apart and look at the different ways that this word functions and how to use it correctly in different sentences. Let's start by taking have and separating the word into two separate categories. On one side, we have the lexical uses of have, and on the other side, we have the grammatical uses of have. Don't let these categories confuse you. Okay, on the lexical side, we're talking about have as a verb, as a main verb in a sentence. Okay, on the grammatical side, we're looking at have as an auxiliary verb, as a helping verb to form different grammatical tenses. That's all we're looking at today. Let's start with the lexical uses of have. Have as a main verb in a sentence. I have a phone. Okay, she's having a bath. In this context, have is separated into two further categories. We have action verbs and non-action verbs, or state verbs, action verbs, stative verbs and action verbs. Whatever you call it, it is the same thing. Have is a non-action verb. Okay, that means possession. I have a book. I have a phone. I have a small family. Okay, when we use have in this context, we can only use it in the simple tenses, not with the continuous tenses. Okay, I have a phone, I had a phone, I've had this phone for 3 years. Okay, we can use have with any of the simple tenses, but never with the continuous tenses, with the meaning of ownership. Something belongs to me. Okay. If we use have plus an object to mean an action or an experience, then it can be used with both simple tenses and continuous tenses. I have a cup of coffee every morning. I'm having a problem. Okay, in the continuous. I've been having lunch for 30 minutes. Something like that. So here we can see that the action version of the word have can be used in both simple and continuous tenses, but the non-action ownership, possession meaning can only be used in simple tenses. Okay, so before we move on, let's discuss a bit of grammar to do with using have as a main verb. Number one, we don't usually contract have when it is the main verb of a sentence. Okay, I have a phone, not I've a phone. No. I have a phone. Yes. I have a cup of coffee every morning, not I've a cup of coffee every morning. That's number one. Number two, when we use have with the present simple and the past simple tenses, okay, we use do or does to form the negatives or the question, and we use did to create the past question or negative. Okay, for example, I don't have a phone, not I haven't a phone. That's not correct. I don't have a phone. Okay. He didn't have a cup of coffee this morning. Not he hadn't a cup of coffee this morning. So do you see how have as a main verb of a sentence functions the same as any other verb? Okay, it's not an auxiliary verb, it is the main verb. So we form questions and negatives in the same way as every other regular verb in the past or present simple. These two rules apply for all lexical uses of have. We don't contract it, and we use do, does, or did to form questions and negatives. Just keep that in mind before we move forward. Okay, so let's move on to another lexical use of have, And that's when we add have plus to, have to. Okay, we use this structure, have to plus verb 1, to talk about obligation. Have to has the same meaning as must, but must is a modal verb. Have to is not a modal verb. Okay, this means that have to can change according to the tenses and according to a subject. Okay, I have to wear a uniform to work. She has to wear a uniform to work. Okay, we can also make have to past tense. I had to wear a uniform when I was in school. You had to listen to your parents when you were young. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you the question, how do we make it negative? How do we say there is no obligation? I haven't to wear a uniform to school, or I don't have to wear a uniform to school? Option 2. Okay, because it is a lexical use of have. It's have as a main verb in a sentence. Now let's look at the last lexical use of have. Okay, we have plus object plus past participle. This structure is an interesting one because it has 2 separate meanings. I have my haircut once a week. I have my haircut once a week. I, subject, have, object, past participle. That's the same structure as they had their house broken into last night. They had their house broken into last night. Subject, had, the past tense of have, had. Object, their house, broken into, past participle. In these 2 examples, we can see one with a positive meaning and one with a negative meaning. If we look at the one with the positive meaning, I have my haircut once a week. Okay. I arrange for someone to cut my hair. I plan for it to happen. I arrange it. I want it to happen. The second one, they had their house broken into. They didn't want that to happen. It's something bad. Something bad happened to them that they didn't arrange, that they didn't want to happen. And those are the 2 uses of have plus object plus past participle. We can use the structure to mean something we arranged, that we wanted to happen. And we can use the structure for a bad thing that happened to us, that we did not arrange. Now let's move on to the grammatical uses of have. Okay, so you will see some crossover in the meanings of the grammatical uses of have that we're going to look at and the lexical uses of have that we've already looked at. Okay, what's important to remember is the way that you use these phrases or the way that you use have in a sentence changes grammatically depending on how you're using the word. Okay, so in the first half of this video we've looked at its lexical uses. These are its grammatical uses. Okay, how it helps us form tenses. So let's start with adding got to have. Okay, I have got. I've got a phone. Okay, now we've formed a present perfect structure that has the same meaning as the lexical have for possession. Okay. I have a phone, I've got a phone. Same meaning, exactly the same meaning, but the structure is different. Okay. Now, have is an auxiliary verb. It's a helping verb in a sentence, and that can be contracted. I have a phone, I have got a phone, I've got a phone. Okay. All of these mean possession. But now when we form a question, we can say, have you got a phone? So we take our auxiliary verb have and we change it with the subject. Okay, have you got a phone? And we can do the same thing with have to. Have to, I have to do my homework. And have got to, I've got to do my homework. Okay, I have to do my homework, we cannot contract that. I've got to do my homework, we can contract it. Okay. Both of these uses of have mean obligation, but have to we use for general obligation. Okay, a policeman has to wear a uniform to work. I had to wear a uniform in school. She doesn't have to do homework on Sundays. Okay. Versus have got to, which we use in English to talk about one-time obligations. Do you want to go out tonight? No, sorry, I've got to do my homework. And if we look at the negative, she doesn't have to study on Sundays. Okay. I haven't got to do my homework. So when we use have got to, we use not after have to create the negative. When I use have to or don't have to, I use the auxiliary verb don't to form the negative. But the words have basically the same meaning. We just use them in different contexts. And then of course have is used to form all of the perfect tenses. Okay, from the past perfect, simple and continuous. I had finished my coffee before I started recording this. I had been running for 13 minutes when you called me. The present perfect and present perfect continuous. I've finished my work for the day. I've been teaching English for many years. And the future perfect and future perfect continuous. I'll have finished studying by the end of next year. I'll have been working here for 2 years next month. Okay, so of course we use it to form all of the perfect tenses, and once again there we can contract it. Okay, so let's summarize this whole video. We have lexical uses of have, grammatical uses of have. Lexical uses of have. Non-action. The non-action meaning possession. Okay, I have a phone. Action meaning I'm having a cup of coffee. Then we have to for obligation, don't have to, no obligation, and have plus object plus past participle with its two meanings, positive and negative. I had my hair cut yesterday. She has her phone stolen every time she goes out. Then we have the grammatical uses, have got. I've got a phone, she's got a book, for possession. Okay, then we have got to, for obligation, but a once-off obligation, a one-time obligation. I've got to make a call. And then of course we have all of the perfect tenses, okay, where we use have as an auxiliary verb to form the tense. Okay. And just remember with the lexical uses of have, do, does, did in the present simple and past simple tenses. With the grammatical uses, we add not after the auxiliary verb, or we use have to create the question. Okay, and this is pretty much everything that you need to know about the word have. I hope you've learned something, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks, bye.